Where are we? Talk to me about arm twisting and what could stay, what could go.
Yeah, they're not in a good place right now, Brooke. And I know Sean Spicer said that their vote count is going up. Everything we're seeing is that it's going down, that they've actually lost more votes over the course of the last couple hours. And I think what you have to look at here, you talked about the House Freedom Caucus. There's a deal that's on the table that hasn't been reached yet. There's a potential offer on the table that hasn't been reached yet. But that offer comes at the detriment of some of the more moderate members of the conference. As it currently stands, CNN has a count of 30 members that are either leaning to be opposed or are outright opposed to this bill. They can only afford to lose 21. And as I noted, that number has been going up. And despite their willingness to kind of reach out their hand to the House Freedom Caucus, they haven't even committed to coming on board yet. So despite lots of behind-the-scenes meetings, Brooke, I've been standing in hallways where 100 feet away from one meeting, the House leaders are meeting with one group, a room down the hall, they're meeting with another, they're twisting arms, they're trying, but they're just not there yet, Brooke.
Arm twisting on Capitol Hill. Arm twisting, I know, at the White House. Jeff Zeleny, talk to me about what the president's been up to today, who he's met with, what promises he's made.
Well, Brooke, I think there's no question there's frustration on the minds of folks here at the White House. The president in particular, he's used to getting what he wants. He's used to being able to sell a deal. Now, he had some of his biggest supporters over here at the White House this morning, the members of the House Freedom Caucus that Phil was just talking about. These come from the reddest of red districts all across the country here. And so far, they are defying him. So far, they're saying, look, we are not with you on this. So now, coming up in the next half hour or so, moderates will be coming over here to the White House. This is why this is such a problem right at this hour, because they do not have the support on the right, and they are losing support in the middle as well on this. So the White House is trying to get some concessions, make some guarantees here, but at this point they do not have the votes. And Brooke, it's important to point out, if everyone is not following all the ins and outs of this, this is an internal party fight among Republicans. Never mind the Democrats, who of course are all voting against this, and never mind the Senate. It takes a bill to pass the House and the Senate to be signed into law. And they were hoping for a symbolic victory today on the 7th anniversary of President Obama signing this bill into law. That clearly will not happen. They will not make it by that deadline, of course, to have this repealed and replaced. But even at this hour, the House bill, which is just one small part of all this, is still not being worked out yet. So the president, once again, seeing the limitations of his persuasion ability, but he is still working the phones. He is still trying to get people on board here. So we'll see if he can do it before the end of the day here, Brooke. But no vote for the next several hours. We'll see if there's a vote before midnight tonight. Many people think there may not be. Well, Brooke, we just talked a few moments ago with the Deputy Press Secretary here at the White House, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and she is largely saying that, look, nothing has changed here. The position on this is still the same. They are working forward. And they simply did not want to have votes in the middle of the night, as Gloria was saying. And I will quote exactly what she said here, Brooke. She said, "We will move the vote until tomorrow morning so that we do not end up voting at 3 o'clock in the morning." That is what's happening. The debate tonight is going on as planned. They'll vote tomorrow morning. But again, as David pointed out, the vote is not scheduled by the folks here at the White House. The vote is scheduled by the Majority Leader's office in consultation with the Speaker of the House, and they have not yet said that. So the White House is trying to project an air of calm, an air of confidence that there's nothing to see here, because the minute it looks like this is going south, people are certainly not going to change their position and say, wait, I was for that. It will go the other direction. So the White House is trying to keep this going forward. But Brooke, no question that things are in flux right now, and the White House cannot guarantee that a vote will happen tomorrow morning, because the votes right now of 216 simply aren't there. But an air of confidence so far being projected at this hour here at the White House, Brooke.
Okay.
If it were just about President Trump, we would all have caved a long time ago, because he is very charming and he's very persuasive. But there are fundamental problems with this bill that even he can't overcome. So, I think if you took the insurance companies out of this and the folks that have been in the swamp for 20 or 30 years and just let Trump work on this with conservatives and moderates here in the House, we could come to a solution. The problem is you got other people at the table that stand to lose money if health insurance prices go down.
Who are you blaming specifically? You want to name some? Now you're referring to the Speaker.
No, I'll blame our leadership here in the House. They have papered over these differences for weeks. They ran this bill through 3 different committees and cajoled people into not even offering amendments when really this could have been solved in regular order, but it wasn't. They swept it under the rug, these differences. And here we are. It's a game of chicken. We're talking about a sixth of our economy, and they want to write the bill in 3 or 4 hours and have us vote on it tomorrow. I don't think that's responsible, and that falls on the shoulders of our GOP leadership.
Well, I assume you're referring to the Speaker. Paul Ryan, is it time, if this thing collapses, for him to go?
I'll give him a few other chances. If this thing collapses tonight, it'll be a big win for Republicans. If it passes and becomes law, it's going to be horrible. I'd give him a chance next week. Let's go home and come back and work on this next week or the week after that. There's more than one bite at the apple. This premise that it has to happen today because it's the anniversary, the 7-year anniversary of Obamacare, that's ridiculous. We're talking about a sixth of our economy. Let's slow this down and get the process right.
Who need that assistance. As bad as TrumpCare was, Republicans have been up to all night trying to make it worse. They're scrambling to find a bill that they can pass on the floor. I don't know if you want to call this, on Trump's part, a rookie's error, but you don't find a day and say we're going to pass a bill. You build your consensus in your caucus, and when you're ready, you set the date to bring it to the floor. But so eager were they to, to be mean-spirited, to say we're going to bring up this bill on the same day as the 7th anniversary of the Affordable Care Act. Rookie's error, Donald Trump. You may be a great negotiator. Rookie's error for bringing this up on a day when clearly you're not ready. And how are they moving to get ready? Here's how they're moving. Now we hear Republicans are planning changes to destroy the protections of more than 155 million Americans who get coverage through their employers. Eliminating essential health benefits. You've probably seen, I don't have it here, but essential health benefits that were something we're very proud of in the Affordable Care Act. I'll just say that essential health benefits means Republicans are making being a woman a pre-existing condition again. Stripping guaranteed maternity care is a pregnancy tax, pure and simple. Stripping guaranteed maternity care is a pregnancy tax, pure and simple. Worsening the addiction epidemic and making it harder to access mental health care, making it more expensive to be sick in America. Well, that's their goal, to make America.
First off, Mr. Moss, as I've told you before, my deepest condolences to you and yours for the loss of your son. I can't imagine the pain, but I think it's very admirable what you're doing to try to bring attention to this important issue.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me on your show.
So the Republican health care plan would end the Obamacare requirement that addiction services be covered under Medicaid in the 31 states that expanded Medicaid. Now, in 2014, 1 in 4 Americans treated for addiction were on Medicaid, according to the National Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse. So what might it mean for others like your son, Rob, who struggled with addiction, if this requirement is taken away from Medicaid?
Well, I'm going to tell you, it takes away the only hope these kids and these young adults have. It takes away the hope that the only lifeline that they had to get off this drug. We were supposed to add to the services that are currently available, and what's happened is we're taking away what we were supposed to add to. This whole thing is just topsy-turvy and backwards, and it's a tragedy that they're even considering trying to put this thing through.
Did you ever get to meet with President Trump, and what would you say to him if he happens to be watching right now?
I've never met him personally to sit down over coffee or tea, but he did shake my hand on several occasions at different rallies. The one most memorable was the January 15th rally in Urbandale, Iowa, where I had asked him a question pertaining to if he became president, what he would do to combat the ongoing heroin epidemic we find ourselves in. And he consoled me, he comforted me, and he told me that we were going to work at putting facilities more available for these kids and to get these kids off opioids and get them off the heroin and do the very best we can in order to combat the heroin epidemic we find ourselves himself in.
And lastly, Craig, I want to take a moment to honor the memory of your 24-year-old son, Rob. What do you want people to know about your son? We're showing his picture right now. What do you want people to know about him while they think about this health care bill and the changes in health care that Congress and the president are trying to bring?
My son was a good man. My son was the kind of man that during a snowstorm like we just had would be across the street to the elderly woman who was on a fixed income, who had a driveway. She did drive. And he would go there and shovel her driveway and her sidewalk. And she'd come out and try to stop and say, I don't have any money to pay you. My son would go and my son would shovel the driveway, and at the end of the season, he'd come in the house with an apple pie, and he'd say, Mrs. Myers gave me an apple pie for shoveling her driveway. That's what kind of man my son was. He was a man that did everything for everyone else and thought about nobody but someone else's his troubles, even though he had troubles of his own. He's the kind of man that would borrow my truck, and if something normal would go, like a universal joint or something, he would fix it. He wouldn't leave it on the side of the road. He would fix it, and he'd have it towed, and he'd take care of it. My son was a good man. My son was a good man. He had a big heart, and he showed everybody his heart.